order. Mr. Evans, would you please read?
Yes, sir. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, all the board members. I do, before I have this best to read the safety instructions, just a reminder, as we do have people that are listening in by phone call, by Zoom, sound is important, so just a reminder to myself as well that whenever you get ready to speak, you will lean towards and make sure that the microphone is pointing right at you so it can pick you up as well as it can. So, a quick reminder about that. I'll call on Ms. Best to read our safety instructions.
Good evening. To provide for the safety of those attending this meeting, I want to give the following instructions in case of an emergency. First, please take a moment to note where your exits are. If an emergency arises that prompts us to evacuate, I ask that everyone exit this room in a quick and orderly manner through one of the two exterior doors, one to your right and the other behind you. Once you exit the building, we ask that you safely cross Vernon Street to our parking lot to be safely away from the building. Our staff will provide direction and assistance. In the case of a tornado warning, we ask that you exit this room into the hallway, where we will remain until it is safe to exit. In the event of an active shooter in the building, we will 1, run, if there is an accessible escape path, and try to evacuate the premises. 2, hide. If you can evacuate, find a place to hide where you are less likely to be found, and lock any doors that you can. And 3, fight, only as a last resort and only if your life is in imminent danger. Our staff will continue to provide assistance on what to do. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Ms. Best. Caroline.
God, we give thanks for today, blessings of life, health, and strength. We ask that you will be in our meeting, in our minds, and our hearts. We might do the things and make decisions that will best serve our constituents, that we might give you glory and honor and praise for Christ's sake. Amen.
You have in your agenda packet a minute of the previous meeting. Any additions or corrections? If not, your motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Question? All in favor, let it be known by the vote sign aye.
Aye.
All opposed? There is none, the minutes are approved. A public hearing is called to order to receive citizens' comments and questions relative to the renaming of Edgecombe Lane to Joe's Place. The public hearing is called to order. Mr. Peters, would you please read the public notice?
Yes, sir. Public notice is hereby given that a public hearing will be held by the Board of Commissioners of Edgecombe County on Monday, May 3rd, 2021 at 7 p.m. in the Carmen Auditorium of the County Administrative Building, 201 St. Andrew Street, Tarboro, North Carolina, relative to the naming and/or renaming of state-maintained roads and private lanes as required in the ordinance establishing policies and procedures for addressing all public and private roads in Edgecombe County. The following will be considered for adoption. Bessemer Lane to be renamed to Joe's Place, located off Powell Road in Township 12. A map showing the location of this lane is available for public inspection during business hours 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. in the County Planning Office, room 205, County Administrative Building, 201 St. Andrew Street, Tarboro, North Carolina. In light of the state of emergency and in consideration of the recommendations of the government and public health officials to limit public gatherings, Edgecombe County's Board of Commissioners meeting on May 3rd, 2021 at 7 p.m. will be limited to no more than 20 participants in person, not including staff and scheduled guests. Face coverings are required. Those who wish to address the board during this public hearing must sign up in advance to do so. You may sign up by calling Frangie Mungo, clerk to the board, at 252-641-7834, no later than Monday, May 3rd at 5 p.m. The public is also encouraged to submit public comments via email to publiccomments@edgecombco.com by 5 p.m. on Monday, May 3rd, 2021. Public comments may also be submitted by mail addressed to Frangie Mungo, clerk to the board, P.O. Box 10, Tarboro, North Carolina 27886. All public comments received by 5 p.m. on May 3rd will be read at the meeting. The public is also encouraged to listen to the meeting by calling 1-929-205-6099 and entering 819-9416-2976 as the meeting ID and 082353 as the passcode. This is the 21st day of April 2021 by order of the Board of Commissioners of Edgecombe County. Frangie Mungo, clerk to the board.
Does there have any comment?
Yes, sir, Mr. Wiggins. Mr. Joe Powell has submitted a request to rename Bessemer Lane to Joe's Place. Section 20-37 of our Code of Ordinances requires a public hearing be held for consideration of a road name change. A public hearing has been properly published. Following the public comment, I recommend that you rename Bessemer Lane to Joe's Place. I would like to note that Mr. Powell is here tonight, not necessarily to speak, but to answer any questions that you have. And in the call for public comments, I do have one that was submitted in writing.
At this time, we call for public comments. Go ahead and read it.
And this is to Ms. Frangie Mungo, clerk to the board. It says, in reference to the request by Joe Powell and Edward Powell to rename Bessemer Lane along Powell Road to Joe's Place, I am in favor of this change, and this is from Ms. Clara Neal. And that was the only written comment that we received for that public hearing.
Is there anybody else here for public comment? Is there anybody else like to comment at this time? Hearing none. We will adjourn the public hearing, and the recommendation is the Forestry Commission is a favorable recommendation to change that name. If they able. But all in favor, let it be known by a vote of aye. Aye. All opposed? Hearing none. Recommendation is approved. At this time, we have scheduled appointments. Mr. Evans.
Yes, sir, Mr. Wiggins. First scheduled appointment is the recognition of Dr. Glenda Knight, Principal Town Manager. This is something that I recommended and certainly appreciate the board considering this tonight. I've had the opportunity to work with Dr. Knight in her capacity as town manager for some time now. Certainly my previous experience with Hurricane Floyd recovery, Hurricane Matthew recovery, certainly understand what a difficult task that is. And in the last year and a half or so, I have observed, I think, a tremendous amount of progress that certainly it is a team effort. There are lots of people that are involved, but without a doubt, I believe she is the tip of that spear and deserves credit and recognition for the work that she's done to help the town of Princeville, not just to build back, but certainly to build back better. Just to name a few things that I think lays to her accomplishments includes the renovation of their town hall that's near completion, rebuilding of the senior center, which if you cross the river in that direction, you've seen that building being erected, acquisition of an additional 133 acres for the town to be annexed, and also securing state funding to provide for the infrastructure for at least the first 53 of those acres and possibly for all of the 133 acres. She has been working hard to transition. As you know, we administer a number of flood recovery programs for the town. She has decided, and our board as well, that they want to be able to administer as much of that as they possibly can, and I applaud them for wanting to take on that task. So a number of the programs that we were running, we are taking those to completion. Next phases of other projects will be administered directly by the town. They're working on a redevelopment project of their museum, heritage trail project, and lots of other things. And I think just all of that, accumulating and taking place in just a relatively short period of time, I think deserves recognition of her and her tremendous work that she has done for the town. So, Mr. Chairman, if I could, I'd like to call Dr. Glenda Knight to the podium and to present her this plaque.
Please come forward. And the fact that this is an agenda item means that it has the support of the board that will not be introduced. So this is recognition also from this board.
It's my honor to present this to you, Dr. Knight, and the plaque reads, the Edgecombe County Board of Commissioners recognizes Dr. Glenda L. Knight, Principal Town Manager, where we hereby recognize the hard work and leadership you exhibited as the Principal Town Manager in its recovery from the devastation of Hurricane Matthew of 2016. The future of Princeville looks bright, and we commend you for your role in the town's progress. Presented May 3rd, 2021.
Mr. Ryan. Anybody here support
So if I could.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Sir Chairman. If I could, I'd just like to express how honored I am and elated for this recognition on this evening. County Manager received my unedited reaction when he notified me. But I want to say thank you to you as a County Manager, Eric Evans. The productivity with the recovery, not just the recovery, but the day-to-day operation could not have been as effective had you not been timely in responding to the ongoing needs of the town of Princeville. So we humbly extend our gratitude for your unconditional support that you've provided over the time. So County Commissioners, thank you very much for accepting the County Manager's recommendation. I truly appreciate it. I'm just overwhelmed, and I truly thank each and every one of you. Joining me this evening is Mayor Pro Tem Linda Joyner, Commissioner Alvin Jones, and my wonderful husband, Brother Ricky Knight. And I'll leave it up to them for the rest, but thank you very much.
Moving on. You want to comment? Comments, please come up. Any more comments, please come up.
Good evening.
Good evening.
To the distinguished chair, Mr. Wiggins, to the Honorable Board of Commissioners, to Mr. Evans, Deputy County Manager. We greet you. We count it an honor to be here on tonight. And I wouldn't dare miss this occasion on tonight. When you place a person in leadership over any organization, that person is going to do one or three things. They're going to harm, hinder, or help the organization. And certainly Dr. Knight has been a great help to the town of Princeville, and I decide to stand in solidarity with her on tonight. Thank you so much.
I don't know why I let the preacher go first. But I am elated as well that you see the good works that our town manager is doing. We are so thankful for her. And I'm not going to be very long. Dr. Knight transitioned from a commissioner to the town manager. It's amazing how sometimes you get put in one place for a season, and then you get transitioned to the place that you were supposed to be. It's just like a road that you're traveling. Sometimes you detour to make the trip. She probably thought easier. But she has done such a magnificent job for the town of Princeville, and is doing such a magnificent job, and it is not hard for us, the board, to relinquish her to do what needs to be done for Princeville. Because we are in fact intending and know that it will happen. Even with the criticism, sometimes it will happen. It's not an easy job, but it will happen. And Eric, I'm not disrespecting you, but I'm so thankful to you for it. It seems like when I came onto the board, I was introduced to it by Hurricane Matthew. It broke me in, broke me down. But you were so much help to us and helping us to kick this thing off. And then again, like I said, Dr. Knight came along, and as fate would have it, she's done an outstanding job for us. So I just want to say to you, Dr. Knight, it goes without saying, hats off to you. Kudos to you. You're one of the best. Thank you.
Thank you.
No problem. No other comments? No. Mr. Evans?
The next item on the agenda is regarding Down East Home Consortium Action Plan. As you'll recall, Edgecombe County is able to receive federal home funds by being a part of the Down East Home Consortium. Home funds provide for housing and community development activities for primarily low-income families. Typically, the home funds we receive are used for housing rehabilitation projects. We participate along with the City of Rocky Mount, who is our lead entity, and several other municipalities in the Twin Counties region. One requirement of the program is that a 3-year consolidated plan and subsequent annual action plans be prepared, outlining how funds will be used. Tonight we have Ms. Cornelia Anthony McGee and Mr. Peter Varney from the City of Rocky Mount, who are going to present this 3-year and annual action plan as well as other information.
I'm going to use some slides. I got about a dozen slides I wanted to show, so if we can get those.
And you have a copy of the agenda packet as well.
I want to give some background. These slides, I hope, will help. These slides, I hope, will help us explain what this funding is about and how it works. So on this first slide that you see, you'll see at the bottom the 3 documents that we're talking about. And they're fairly substantial documents. Copies with me. This is the consolidated plan and the annual plan, and this is the analysis. So just for background, there are 2 streams of funding that come to this area from HUD. One is from the Community Development Block Grant Program at HUD, and that funding stream comes directly to the City of Rocky Mount as an entitlement city with HUD. The second stream of funding comes from the HOME program at HUD, and that comes directly to the Consortium, which, as Mr. Evans just explained, is a group of the county and a number of municipalities within the 2 counties. And so the 3 documents that we talked about is a consolidated plan, there's a 3-year plan, and the annual action plan is the plan for the coming fiscal year, and then the analysis of impediments we'll talk about in more detail in a minute. This is the schedule that we're following. So we have had these documents on public display during the period of April 1st through today, May 3rd. We've had them in hard copy in our offices at City Hall, had them electronically available on the city's website, and had distributed them to each of the members of the consortium. On April 26th, we conducted a public hearing before the Rocky Mount City Council. We did have 3 citizens come and speak, and they commented, all of them in favor of the idea of conducting a referendum for the issuance of general obligation bonds for funds for housing in Rocky Mount. We're here tonight on May the 3rd making this presentation. Next Monday we'll be before the Rocky Mount City Council asking them for adoption of these plans. Our target is to submit these plans to HUD on May the 15th, and so that we can have the funding in place at the beginning of the fiscal year, July 1st. We also had solicited comments from stakeholders back during the months of December and January. And so we heard and received comments from the Human Relations Commission, the Rocky Mount Area Youth Council, the Community Academy, the Down East Home Consortium members, Rocky Mount Housing Authority, the Tar Heel Regional Continuum of Care Committee, Legal Aid of North Carolina, Rocky Mount Redevelopment Commission, the North Carolina Association of Community Development Corporations, and boards of girls. We did receive a lot of comments, several pages of comments that are in these plans. These are the most commonly heard comments that we received. There's 6 of them there that we thought were the most commonly ones. The first one is there's a strong desire for a more strategic approach to area development. And so I think what they're talking about there is coordination of plans and communication and coordination among the agencies. The second one is the city should implement an affordable housing bond. That's that general obligation bond just mentioned. The next one is that the Atlantic Avenue Arlington Street corridor land use plan be fully implemented. That corridor is the access to the event center in Rocky Mount. And there's an interest in how the land would be developed and reused along that corridor. The next one is a request that the city provide incentives to developers to encourage private market to develop more affordable housing.
The next one is, there's a group called the Workforce Housing Advisory Commission that was appointed about a year ago. I think they met once or twice, and then the pandemic came and caused the suspension of their meetings, and they have reconvened. I've met with that group twice in the last couple of months. And the last one is to continue housing rehabilitation. I think all of us, the city of Rocky Mount, has done mostly rehabilitation. Edgecombe County, Nash County, many of the jurisdictions within have done the same thing. The goals of the plan are fairly simple and straightforward. Indicated there to provide decent housing, provide a suitable living environment in the neighborhoods, and to expand economic opportunities. There's a ton of data that's presented in these plans. I won't go through all of that. Some of it addresses a needs assessment, talks about the percentage of households who are cost burdened. That is, those households who spend more than 30% of their household income to provide housing. It breaks that down further to talk about which of those, what percentage of those are renters and what percentage homeowner occupants. Indicates that the elderly and single-parent households are those most likely to be cost burdened. It also it provides data that shows a change in real incomes during the period 2010 to 2015. Information is provided in there about the housing authorities. There are 2 housing authorities in the 2-county area, the city of Rocky Mount and the town of Tarboro, and the number of units that are provided, and the Section 8 vouchers and so on, how much that is. There's a housing market analysis that's provided. Housing stock in the 2-county area, roughly 2/3 single-family stock, and about half of that is owner-occupied. And the conclusion of all of that data that's in these reports is that there's a high priority need for urgent housing repair, high priority need for blight abatement, and a high priority for rehab of rental and multifamily housing. So it's a combination of this data and public input that produces the plan. So the priority needs that are provided in the consolidated plan, the 3-year plan for both the city and the consortium, are these that you see before you: to increase access to and increase the quality of affordable housing, eliminate slum and blight influences, improve public facilities and infrastructure, provide public services, economic development. Obviously, the more we can provide jobs, the more income can be available to provide opportunity for housing, strengthening the fair housing enforcement, fair housing ordinance enforcement through operations and education, and then planning and administration. To back up on the public services, what we have done with public services, funding for public services this year, provided funding for the Boys and Girls Club in Rocky Mount. United Community Ministries at the Bassett Center provides homeless sheltering. Rocky Mount Edgecombe Community Development Corporation engaged them to provide housing counseling. The Bug Leonard Association has operated a construction trades class, and then funding for My Sister's House, which is a shelter for battered women. So this is the annual plan, switching from the consolidated plan to the annual plan. If you look at the bottom, the amount that we expect to receive for the consortium is a little over $400,000, $407,000. And you can see how it's allocated, proposed to be allocated up there, $40,000 for administration, which is required. There's a reserve amount, $190,000, that is reserved for reconciliation funding for both Nash and Edgecombe counties. CHODO funding, CHODO stands for Community Housing Development Organization. We're required to allocate 15% of the funding for community housing development organizations, and you see that there. What's proposed for that is to build new construction of 2 new homes for homeowner occupancy, and also to provide down payment assistance. And then you can see the other allocations that are proposed in there. This again talks about how those funding would be used. Essentially, it has been and would continue to be single-family housing rehabilitations, and then the support for the Chodo organization, and then the city of Rocky Mount pursues single-family housing rehabilitations. Next, shifting to the analysis of impediments to fair housing choice, definition of a couple of terms, talking about fair housing. What that is the right to choose housing free from unlawful discrimination. And that has to do with any transaction that's involved in acquiring or renting a house. The next term we use often is protected classes, and these are groups of people with a common characteristic who are legally protected by law from discrimination. And so, let's see, I think I've got a graphic. Yeah. So those protected classes include those by race, color, religion, disability, sex, familial status, and national origin. So what are the impediments that are identified in this report? One of them is lower employment rates and wages for certain classes. And what the report talks about specifically is that class of persons with disabilities. Essentially what it says is that people with disabilities tend to have lower rates of employment than people without disabilities, and also lower wages for those who do work than people without disabilities. They also talk about single-parent households. That's not identified as a protected class, but they also mention that as people that fall under that category. The second one talks about the housing choice voucher program concentrated in the inner city neighborhoods in the city of Rocky Mount. And so that's where we find the Section 8 vouchers used mostly. There's a high, it indicates further that there's a high number of persons with disabilities in particular who are in need of those vouchers. The third one, let's see, talks about the non-white households were less likely to be homeowners. Homeownership is, I think everybody is aware, is a wealth building, a means for wealth building in families. And what it indicates is that Black and Hispanic people who apply for mortgages are more likely to be denied those, or if they are approved, then to pay higher rates, higher loan costs. The fourth one talks about moderate levels of segregation existing in the inner city of Rocky Mountains. We find that the population of African Americans in particular concentrated in the inner city neighborhoods of Rocky Mountain. The next one talks about a lack of transportation in areas outside of Rocky Mountain. And what they're talking about specifically there is transportation to take people to jobs. We have the van service, the demand response service operated by Tarlewood Transit that takes people who are clients of social services or the Tri-County Industries or different other agencies. But it's difficult for a household, say with one or two people in it working, who are transportation challenged to find public transportation to take them outside the city, that is, to take them to places of employment. So they talk about that as a need. And the last one is expanding the accessory dwelling unit provision in the zoning ordinance. We do allow occupancy of these accessory dwelling units, but it's limited to those that you see there listed. And so what the plan is, or what the plan is calling for, is an expansion of who may be allowed to use those facilities, to expand the opportunity for access to housing. There are some goals that are listed. There are 4 goals. First goal is to expand housing choice and access to opportunity. And so what that more specifically is talking about is continuing the funding of rehabilitation of homes and also new construction when we can. Another one is to continue the funding of nonprofit agencies who provide career readiness services, job training, and education services. And in addition to that, to provide transit access where we can for major employers, particularly for those who are outside the fixed route transit operation. The second goal talks about increasing home ownership, and More specifically, what the document talks about there is funding home buyer counseling services and considering establishing a mortgage loan pool at a bank that operates in the area. The third goal is to strengthen anti-discrimination investigation, enforcement, and operations, and more specifically what that's talking about is supporting the Human Relations Commission fair housing activities. In Rocky Mount Chapter 12 of the Code of Ordinances is the fair housing ordinance, and so it's addressing that enforcement of that ordinance. And it also calls for improved coordination between and communication between the Human Relations Commission and Department and the Community Development staff. And the last goal is to educate landlords, tenants, and the public, everybody, about fair housing. What it speaks specifically about is developing a fair housing guidebook that could be distributed around, partnering with Nash and Edgecombe counties to hold a fair housing forum to bring attention and education in the area about fair housing. And the last one is to contract for peer discrimination testing. So that's mentioned in the report. That's the last slide. Yep, that's the last slide. Are there questions or comments?
Any questions from the board?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
You say low income. Can you tell me what amount is considered low income that would qualify?
It's in a range. I'm going to ask Amelia to help me. There's a range. It's a range of numbers, depends on the number of people in the household and so on. But maybe could you help me with that?
So someone that's considered low to moderate income, to give you an example, for moderate income, which would be on the higher end, say for instance like a family of 4 and roughly about $53,000, $54,000 a year. And on the low end, if we're talking about one person in a household, $350 is considered very low income.
I would ask because a couple asked me. Only 2 of them in the house.
Any other questions of the board? If not, thank you, Mr. Wiley. Thank you so much for the presentation. Moving on.
Next on the scheduled appointment is have Ms. Caroline Squidell, our health director, here tonight to give you the COVID-19 update.
Thank you for this opportunity to present to you tonight. It's always a pleasure to get to speak with you, commissioners. And again, I want to tell you what a wonderful job our public health employees are doing. We've been in this over a year, and so it's been all hands on deck for a long time, focusing on COVID. Well, this report comes from April the 25th. It's reported to me by DHHS. We've had 5,418 cases of COVID from that date. That's since the last 2 weeks. I get this report every 2 weeks. That's an increase of 253. We average, and I do the average on like a 30-day total, we average about 10 cases a day. And the reason I do that is not all cases fall. Like one day you might have 40 fall, the next day you may have 2. So I do that on about a 30-day average. We still have OptumServe doing testing at Heritage Park over in Princeville. They've done 2,031 tests with 176 positive. And we still have the group, the same group in Pine Tops testing, and they've done 1,544 with 180 positives. The group that is the highest number that we have now positives is the group of 25 to 49, that age range, and that was 1,980. More females seem to have COVID than males, and we still, more whites tend to have COVID than any other race in our county. We've had 389 hospitalizations of our residents. We, sad to say, we've had 116 deaths in our county. That 45% of that was from outbreaks, which was a total of 52. Of course, age 75 plus has more more deaths than the other groups. Race, we've had 52 deaths, and whites we've had 61, and then 3 make up the other ones. And it's equal 50-50 between males and females that have had deaths. We still continue to do vaccinations at the health department. The health department itself has done over 15,000 vaccines, which I think is tremendous, being that, now not all of those go to Edgecombe County residents because we can't deny anyone. And we've had people come all the way from Mecklenburg County to get a vaccine here in Edgecombe County. But Edgecombe County, right now we're looking at 24,416 first and second doses. Of that, 13,411 are first-time doses, and 11,005 are fully vaccinated. Our numbers in our clinic, and I talked to our other partners who have been doing clinics, are continuing to decrease. We ourselves have gone from 5 days a week to 2 days a week as of this week. We'll only be doing it on Thursdays and Fridays, and we've opened our clinic back up to general business Monday through Thursday, and then we'll be doing clinics for COVID 9 to 4 on Thursdays and Fridays at both offices. We are still giving the Moderna vaccine. The J&J is available again, and that's, I know that our FQHCs, Freedom Hill and OIC, have some of that vaccine if anyone would prefer that. Our partners are Freedom Hill, OIC, Pine Tops Pharmacy, Rural Health Group in Whitaker's, Violet Multi-Specialty Clinic, Thorn Drug, Bryan Drug, Walmart, and Walgreens have all been given. One of the other adventures that we've ventured at, I think I spoke on this the last time, is we've been going out to businesses. We've been to Johnson Control, which is the old Black & Decker plant here in Tartar, and we've been out to ADD and Pine Tops, and we've given a considerable amount. We're working with QVC at this point. We've come up with some little obstacles. Looks like we're going to be able to do that, hopefully, if we can get the building over at Kingsborough Livestock Center rather than in the facility. So if we do that, we'll open it up to the surrounding area, and anyone can come in and get that. We continue, if anyone needs a homebound vaccine, we continue to work with the rescue squad on providing that. And that's anyone that has to go to the doctor by rescue squad. So we'll go out to the home and administer the vaccine. And we also do curbside for anyone that has difficulty getting in and out of their cars. That's been a real success, and people have been real thankful for that. We still continue to do that. We continue to work with Michelle Cherry and the Rural Health Network in providing events out in the county that they have done. And Freedom Hill, Laura Owens, who's the executive director, continues to work with the Farmers Association here in Edgecombe County and Court of Extension to provide the vaccine to the migrant population. I'm going to attend a meeting tomorrow morning by Zoom to work with the other counties who have low vaccination rates to see what we're doing, what can we do different to get people back in wanting to get the vaccine. Have had an opportunity, I think twice since I talked with you, to speak with Channel 17 about Edgecombe County, and one of those was we were the only county that was red for one little short time. I haven't figured that one out yet. Called the state to ask about that, and hadn't got my answers back on that, so I'll have to wait till next time to comment more on that. We still have 4 individuals from CCNC that is helping us do the billing for administering the vaccine, and that's at no cost to us. That's really wonderful, because we have to, all 15,000 of those have to be processed through our medical records entered. We still have 14 National Guard soldiers assisting us, and they are doing all of our entering the data into CVMS, which has been awesome to work with them. They are a fine group of young men and women that we've been having in our health department for now about a couple of months. It'll be a sad day when they go. Any questions?
Any questions?
What could you suggest in neighborhoods where some of us are trying to really get people to take the vaccine? When someone says to you, it hasn't been proven, hasn't been fully tested, what kind of suggestions can you give us to try to convince people that they still need to take it?
Well, you know, I always tell people it's your decision to get it or not. A lot of people have taken the vaccine and have had not any issues with it. And then I ask them to come by, and this is why we have Dr. Winslow available at our clinics, and that we also use registered nurses to give our vaccine and give them the opportunity, no pressure, to be able to speak to the registered nurses about the vaccine. And that has helped a lot. People have been very thankful for that. Some people have left without getting the vaccine, but I would say 90% of them have received the vaccine. Dr. Winslow has been a real champion in our country.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
What percent of our population do you think is under the age of 16? Would you say 20%?
I would say pretty close to that.
So if that's the case, and we're a county of 52,000, and we've got 43,000 people eligible for vaccination, and you're saying 24,000 either have 1 or 2 doses, and we're at 60% of our eligible population has been vaccinated or in the process of receiving the second.
Now,
60% is not bad, is it?
Of that, what I was giving you, not all of those are Edgecombe County residents.
Right.
Like you said, 24,000.
No, of the 15,000. Of the 15,000.
And you said 24,000 Edgecombe County residents either had first or 2 shots. So if we have 24,000 of 40,000 eligible,
right.
42,000, and we're at 60% of our population has received the vaccination.
I'm dealing with 2 numbers. The 15,000, not all of those are Edgecombe County residents. But
The 24,000.
Right.
I'm just wondering, I mean, how do we compare it? 60% of the eligible population has been vaccinated. How do we compare to other counties?
I'm going to use that tomorrow on that. Thank you for that.
Well, I mean, that's the fact,
Well, you
right?
know,
Close to it.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're right. I'm going to thank you.
Let's make sure our numbers are correct before the newspapers.
I got them off the website today.
I mean, when he talked about 60% of the population, when I read or heard of the news somewhere, it was only about 25% of our population.
But
I will check on that.
here's a question that she has not answered. So it's a question out there, and I think he's raising a question based on his figures and numbers there.
Well, we're a county of 53,000, 20% are not eligible because they're under the age of 16. That's what the map says.
Well,
But I don't believe and I will check that out. But
thank you so
I hope the
much.
number is right. But
I feel like this number runs pretty close.
Thank you so much. And thank you for the good work of staff, John.
Thank you.
No other questions?
Oh, sorry.
At this time, is there a motion to recess our regular board of commission meeting and reconvene as board for equalization area? Question? All in favor, please, number vote sign aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Here is none. We're now setting as board of equalization area.
I think you want to speak to public petition. We're going to get to that.
Hold that. Can't get you right now. Hold. You're next on the agenda. Next on the agenda.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. So we have Ms. Teresa Lewis, our tax administrator, here to walk us through the next step.
Thank y'all for hearing the appeals for me this evening, but fortunately, we do not have any for scheduled tonight. We did receive one appeal that our office had to work informally on Friday at the last minute. So unfortunately, we will not be able to finalize our decisions by resolution tonight, finalize our values. So we're going to move that to the June board meeting. So we're still doing good. I will like to report we've had only 9 parcels appealed in value this year out of our 33,000 real parcels. And it had a reduction of $168,000 in real value They were all pretty much condition adjustments for use change. So that's good news for our office. So if you guys will like to adjourn for the purpose of accepting any more appeals, this is the time to do so.
So what is my motion?
To adjourn the equalization of review for 2021.
Hold it. I'm not understanding what I'm doing yet, okay? Because you said that we've got a June meeting.
We will have a June meeting only if the appeal we accepted Friday does not accept their value, for the purpose of hearing them. But because of lack of timing for communication purposes, their filing was on Friday. We adjusted it and we communicated that in writing back to them by law. They have an opportunity to come before you if they do not agree with that. But because that change come during the Board of Equalization review time, I cannot get you to recommend the finalizing of the values for this year until that hearing or that value has been determined that is acceptable or not. So for the purpose of hearing any more appeals, we need to adjourn tonight. But we can reopen and sit and hear that case if necessary in the June meeting, and then we will make a recommendation at that time, either to hear her argument and then accept the values, finalize the values.
Yes, sir.
So my motion is to adjourn. We've got a motion and to adjourn the Board of Equalization and reconvene the Board of Commissioners. We've got a motion and a second. All in favor, let it be known by vote sign aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, we now stand as the county commissioner. Do you feel you have something to add here?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. While Ms. Lewis is at the podium, I would like to direct your attention to under the manager's report, there is a letter in there that we received from the North Carolina Department of Revenue that I would like for Ms. Lewis. I'm sorry, it's under department reports.
Okay, so General Statute 105-284 states that the North Carolina Department of Revenue on each 4-year or 7-year revaluation cycle, those counties take into consideration where our sales ratio study is at that point, and if it is beneath 90%, then the North Carolina Department of Revenue and the tax office needs to adjust our, equalize our personal property and our public service company values. And what that is doing is making sure that our public service companies are being equally valued versus what our real property people are being valued. And so currently we are at our 4th year of our revaluation cycle. We revalued in 2017 and we are currently at our 4th year. Our sales ratio study for 2020 was 93.55. So we're a little bit less than 6%, or a little bit more than 6% of 100%. And what that means is our market is high, which we all know that right now our sales, the houses are selling way over market value. So that is good, that is bad. It's good that we've made up our 2%, or will be making up our 2% hopefully when we do our reval. And make it up and then some hopefully if the sales remain where they're at now. And so what that's telling us is that we are going to remain valuing our public service companies at 100% for 2021, and they don't see an adjustment again until our 7th year out, which is the year before our revaluation cycle. So that was some good news for us.
Would we not want to get everything up to the current market?
We do, but without changing our revaluation cycle from a 8-year, that would be something that you guys would need to determine. Typically, most counties are at a 4-year or 8-year revaluation cycle. Some of Wake County, I believe, has even done it every 2 years because they have so much growth. But our sales ratio is completed by our staff each year, quarterly. we have to submit sales information to the state, and they're looking at our ratio. The statutes tell them if it drops beneath a certain percentage, then they're forced us to do a revaluation. If it goes above like 120%, they force us to do a ratio. So if it drops too low and if it goes too high, they're going to make you outside the standards do it. And with the revaluation standards that the DOR has in place now, we do have to start doing preliminary stuff now for revaluation. So right now we are currently in a study that we have to look at 120 parcels in detail right now to determine what type of revaluation we will be doing the next 2 years.
I think we talked about the reval, and we felt we got the need from both counties. We felt that if we did it, both counties, national Edgecombe, just based on the city of Rock Island, we need to consider, if we change it, both of us would need to consider doing it. That's one of the conversations we had in previous years. Yes, sir.
That's right. Yeah, and Nash County is currently on 8-year cycle, the same as we are.
And we felt that we need to stay on the same.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. The only time I would say is if you see a huge amount of growth, then, you know, we need to look at it. But at this point, 6% is not a huge amount of growth, and that could change depending on how the market holds with their sales in the next 4 years.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you so much.
All right, you're welcome. Thank you.
At this time, we have public petition. Is there anybody here that would like to speak? Please come forward. State your name and address for the record.
Good evening. My name is Deborah Jordan. I live at 614 East Wilson Street, Tarboro, North Carolina, 21786. Good evening, commissioners, chair, county manager. Y'all do a little different from ours because I had a question that would have been directed to the Mr. Chappelle. And I'm here to ask why Edgecombe County do not have Say Yes COVID tests.
Say what?
Say Yes COVID tests. Pitt County has free rapid self-test kits that they're distributing, and I would like to know why we don't have it. Is it a grant that needs to be written? You know, I just kind of want to know why we don't have it. Myself and some others was trying to get some of them because they had over 40,000 of them. And we have to be a resident of Pitt County in order to obtain them, you know. So I just want to know how can Edgecombe also get in on this. It's out of great concern for our homebound and sick and shut-in members in our community. I'm concerned. I know Ms. Chappelle said she's been working with, she personally told me as well, so I spoke to her, that she's been working with like their medical transport people and so forth to reach out to people that I know can't get out, but I would like to see a little more than what was mentioned to me. I personally have walked the streets and knocked on doors and took names and phone numbers and turned them into the health department and Freedom Hill Clinic for individuals to get shots. And we've ran across several people, many people that they're not down in the bed sick, but they're homebound because their health don't allow them to really be mobile out in the community, and transportation is an issue for some, or their health, you know, they can't get out. And I just like to know what is it that we're doing, the Edgecombe County Health Department, that we're doing to reach these individuals so they can, what you have in place to reach some of these individuals. Is it a mailing, as well as education about the shots. That's why some people won't take shots because they don't know what's in, you know, what's the difference between the 3 different shots. I know because I've researched myself, and I was very comfortable with the Moderna because of Dr. Corbett that headed it, one of the lead scientists on it. So I felt comfortable with what she said was in the shot. And then the other 2, I didn't do so much research. So my family, my household was fascinated. But I just want to know what program is in place, and I heard her say she's working on some things, there's some people that's in the community that are going to be missed, and especially the rural areas are going to be missed somehow. And the other thing is, some of the people that are distributing the shots are asking for health insurance cards. Well, we have people that do not have an insurance card, and to me, that's a deterrent. It should also, if you're going to advertise or ask people to come get the shot, you also let people know that if you don't have an insurance card, you still can come. Okay, we do know we have some undocumented residents as well in the community. I assisted someone to get their shot. I was told they wouldn't be asked about showing an ID or anything, so they're not turning anyone away. But I know that they're asking for the insurance card because they're going to get for reimbursement purposes. And it's not a necessity to have it because the shot is free. So some of the things that are, are a deterrent to some people, I kind of want, that's one of the things, maybe in the advertisement when people are calling and asking for a shot, they want to, just say you don't have to have an insurance card, but if you do have one, bring it. And, because I asked the question when I wrote pharmaceutical at Eastern Star, distributing the shot, and I asked that question, and then that's when I learned that it was for reimbursement, okay? And the other thing that I have talked to Mr. Evans and as well as my town manager, Troy Lewis, is time to have a conversation about the policing in our county. I've also talked to the sheriff. I'm the mother of a black son that also is autistic, and if he's confronted by law enforcement, he knows who they are and what they do. He may not be compliant because of his autism. He don't want people touching him. If you say, get on the ground, he's not going to want to get on the ground because he's germaphobic. He don't want dirt on him. So I just need to ask for, I see my person here, my commissioner there, who always helps in the community, Ms. Valerie Harris. I asked Solicitor her help to help me get something together along with Mr. Evans. And like I said, I've talked to the town manager and I've talked to the sheriff, Cleveland Atkinson, and our chief, I'm sure he's well aware of what I would like to see happen, and it would include the faith-based and some citizen organizations out of the community to come up and maybe ask the question that we want to ask, especially so close to home, what happened in Elizabeth City. It could jolly well happen here. And I personally, as a mother of a black son, I don't want to think the first thing they're going to do is pull their weapon on my child, especially if he's going to run, because I know he's going to run. He has ran because he tagged car mirror and he took off running because he ran home safe. Panic, ran home, that's what he's going to do. And, I don't want that phone call because I pray when he leaves, I pray when he get back, but I can't keep him in the house, So as a mother of a black son, I just kind of want that conversation to happen here in Edgecombe County. Mr. Evans said we can make this happen. It's time.
And if you talk to the sheriff and the police chief and the managers, it appears that you are heading it up to make it happen. And I think we would support those efforts. We would support the efforts to talk with all involved in the community.
Faith-based,
anybody that needs to talk to.
organizations.
I don't see where there'd be an opposition to that effort.
But that's all I have. Thank you for listening.
And
I want to praise Ms. LaChapelle too. She has allowed people to come from other counties to get a shot. She was very instrumental in helping someone all the way from Belfast for me that had missed their second dose. And I want to give her it's gone to our department of state for the whole meeting.
And you raised one question. We do want to know if there's an additional, help that we can get in terms of what was the first name of that?
Say yes COVID testing, and it's funded through UNC.
If that is something additional that we can do, we certainly will. Check.
Yeah.
She'll check with our health director to make sure that it's something additional that we're missing out there that's funding. We certainly want. Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And thank you for that. Thank you for that heads up, because it might be something that we're not doing. We certainly think that our staff is willing to see if we can get it done. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And good to see all of you all.
Is there anybody else to speak? Or do you have anybody else?
I have no other comments on that.
There's nobody else for public petitions? Hearing none, we move on to other business, budget amendments.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. You'll see we have a number of budget amendments. I do want to point out a couple of them. Budget amendment number 1, I just wanted you to know, apologize for some corrections had to be made. But just essentially want you to understand, so we are responsible for paying for part of the cost for any juveniles that are housed in the Edgecombe County Youth Development Center. We budget for that every year, based on what we anticipate. Some years, because of either more youths in the center or they are staying a longer term, the cost to us is more than the previous year. So you'll see that this is a budget amendment where we are adding $24,265 to that budget line from a few other lines so that we didn't have to pull those funds from general fund. Wanted you to be aware of that. Budget amendment number 10. That is from our Board of Elections. That's to record revenue and appropriate the Help America Vote Act grant. As you'll recall, there have been a few different grant programs or grant funds that have come as related to the COVID-19 pandemic. Has come to the Board of Elections. This is an additional $102,339. And it's a fairly long list of the types of things that can be used, including personal protection gear, also equipment that will help make smoother elections and safer elections process. So we wanted you to be aware of that. Also, there were two budget amendments at your place that I would ask if you would consider adding tonight. The first one is from the Board of Elections, and this is to reappropriate some funds within budget lines for a grant program within the elections office. And the second one is from my office. We have to pay the cost of autopsies that are done, autopsies and investigations that are done by the medical examiner's office. Again, every year, we never know exactly what that cost is going to be, but we're moving some additional funds from central services to cover those additional costs that we've seen to come in for this fiscal year. Happy to answer any questions that you have about any of the other budget.
Any questions? Hearing none, motion to approve? Second?
Second.
Question? All in favor, let it be known by the vote sign aye. Aye. All opposed? Hearing none, they all approved. Moving on to B.
Item B is regarding extension of Benbrook Drive, which is State Road 1354. Institute DOT has submitted a plan to extend Benbrook Drive, which will be added to the state maintenance system. To do so, the attached petition and request must be approved. I recommend that you approve the petition to add the extension of Benbrook Drive to the state maintenance system.
Motion? Second? Question? All in favor, let it be known by the vote sign aye. Aye. All opposed? Hearing none, it is approved.
Item C is from our Board of Elections office. Our elections director, Mr. Spruill, has submitted a request to purchase new voting equipment, which is a high-speed counter DS450. This machine will save time and money when counting and recounting may occur. He noted that during the 2020 election, this would have come in very handy. They had to count and recount 24,000 ballots 3 times. They received a grant to purchase the equipment, and it cost the county no general funds, and so the cost of it is $56,679. They will be participating in a demonstration of it tomorrow at 9 a.m. Any of you happen to be interested in that, would like to see that, you're welcome to. But I recommend that you approve the purchase of this equipment.
Motion? Question? All in favor, let it be known by the vote sign aye. Aye. All opposed? Hearing none, just approved. Moving on.
Item D, JCPC funding for next fiscal year. The North Carolina Department of Public Safety is again making available funds for the juvenile crime prevention programs for FY 2020 in the amount of $255,122. Proposals were solicited and reviewed by the JCPC Funding Committee and then approved by the or the Juvenile Crime Prevention Council itself at their last meeting. Attached is the list of the programs and recommended funding. I do want to note that a difference this year is that we may approve, the state now allows us to approve programs to receive 2-year program commitments. That commitment is contingent upon the availability of funds and the program's continued compliance and performance. Any new programs or programs that have identified performance issues are to receive a 1-year funding agreement. You'll see the programs that are recommended for 2-year funding agreements in the attached. I recommend that you approve the allocation of these funds as presented. That includes $23,104 in local match, which will be included in the FY 22 budget.
Questions before we get a motion? This would be for a similar amount for next year, for the 2-year funding.
Sir?
The 2-year, we are approving funding for those in yellow. So what funding might come in next year?
That's correct. So provided that we receive the same amount of funding, provided that these...
the amount might be different, but we just approving the funding.
The amount will be the same, provided we get overall the same amount of funding from the state.
Motion? Second. Question? All in favor, let it be known by the vote side aye. All opposed, hearing none, it is approved.
Item E, Health Department fees. Staff at the Health Department regularly reviews the fee schedule to add fees as needed to ensure existing fees covers the costs associated with providing the service. For your consideration is a change in the fee for COVID-19 vaccine administration due to the Medicaid reimbursement rate increasing. The current fee is $25 for the first dose and $30 for the second dose. The recommendation is to increase both to $40 per dose. In light of the conversation we just had, I do want to note this is not for the vaccine itself, it is the administration of the vaccine, the administration cost. And again, if someone presents and they do not have insurance, do not have a way to pay the administration cost, they still can get the vaccine. I do think that was a very good recommendation that we need to make that clear in our publication about that. But this did go before the Human Services Board at their last meeting, and they voted, excuse me, to recommend the approval of this fee change.
Motion. Second. Question. All in favor, let it be known by the vote side aye. All opposed, hearing none, it is approved. Moving on to appointment, Edgecombe County Development, Tourism Development Authority, Commissioner Elmer Carl recommended for reappointment. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second. Question. All in favor, let it be known by the vote side aye. All opposed, Ms. Powell is reappointed. Robert Edgecombe Arts Commission. Mr. Buddy Brooks, my British Foundation members recommended for appointment. Is there a motion? Second. Question. All in favor, let it be known by the vote side aye. All opposed, hearing none. Buddy Brooks is appointed. After this, I release Mr. Evans.
Happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Is there a motion to approve? Second. Second. Question. All in favor, let it be known by the vote side aye. All opposed, hearing none. Contract for review and approval. Anything you brought to our attention?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. I would ask if you would table the approval of these 2 contracts. There is an issue that we'll discuss in closed session. It's a legal matter that involves one of these. So I would ask the board to consider tabling this until after we come out of closed session.
We'll just table it. And if we come out of closed session, we'll table it.
Yes,
we
sir.
decide, okay? Is there a motion to table? Second. All in favor, let me know by the vote side aye. All opposed, that is tabled. Departmental report for review, you have them in your package. Anything you brought to our attention here?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Under water service, you have your routine monthly report in your packet. I I do want to point out, at your place is a letter from both the Department of Environmental Quality and from the Department of State Treasurer's Office. Some time back, we received the first letter, a joint letter from these two offices, saying that Edgecombe County, in particular, our water and sewer system was being considered as a potentially distressed unit designation. There was a number of items that we had to address, information that we had to provide. Mr. Matthews gathered that information and submitted that for their review. They made this consideration based on a number of factors, including things like our water and sewer rates, the number of customers that we have, both compared to the number of miles of lines that we have, also compared to the overall population. They look at the debt owed on the system. They look at if we have to provide any general funds to supplement, which we have not for some time now, and a whole other host of things. And so, as a note, there are over 100 systems across the state that are being considered under this designation, including 15 counties. We are one of those 15 counties. So as I mentioned, information has been submitted. They are reviewing this. As of now, you'll see, based on this letter, that we are being put on hold. That is for further review. So I'm not sure exactly when we can expect to get a final word on this, but we may or may not fall on this list of distressed unit designation. What Mike and I noticed is that these are water and sewer systems that are primarily in rural areas of the state. You know, there are similar situations as to ours where it's costly to run these lines with sparsely populated areas of the county, but we're addressing critical water and sewer needs, environmental health issues, those types of things. So there is a possibility that if we happen to be designated as this, along with the many others, and some have already been put on the list, that it seems as though the purpose of this is so that some special attention and possibly some resources can be provided to these systems. We don't know exactly what the form of that will be, the amount of that will be, but you know, we certainly would not want to have this designation hanging over our heads. But I did want you to, as a board, to be aware of this. We will certainly keep you posted as we hear more back on this. Happy to answer any question. Any question?
I guess my question is, we really don't know if we are declared a distressed water system, what will come out of it in terms of...
We don't know, sir.
Any other questions? Anything else on the department report?
Nothing else on there. Well, we'll point out that you'll see in your packet that there were some of our fire departments that were recently inspected. All of those currently fall under as approving their rating inspection. 2 of those were recently done back in this past March, but so far all of our departments have passed their rate inspections. But nothing else in particular to point out under the department reports, but happy to answer any questions.
Hearing none, move on to the manager's report.
You have in your packet the monthly workforce development indicators for your review. Happy to answer any questions. I also provided information in here regarding an update on the Medicaid transformation. That's something that the state has been talking about for a few years now. That is moving forward now, as you probably know. So I thought that this article from the Association of County Commissioners publication was a very good summation of that transformation. But I've also asked for Ms. Best to give you a summary of this tonight. So if it's okay, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to turn it over to Ms. Best.
Good evening again. The new North Carolina Medicaid managed care system, where beneficiaries will transition from a fee-for-service system to a managed care system, is set to go live on July the 1st. Under this transformation, beneficiaries will be able to choose from 5 health plans or as they've been called PHPs or prepaid health plans. The state of North Carolina is contracting with these PHPs to provide health care services. Open enrollment for the beneficiaries began on March 15, 2021 and ends on May 14. And auto enrollment is set for May 15 for those who did not self-enroll by that 5/14 deadline. Of course, the questions that we have been on numerous Zooms and meetings is to determine how this is going to affect the county and their role in this transition. As a part of the Department of Health and Human Services plan to move to managed care, there are specific protections for certain healthcare providers, including local health providers, which will be defined in state law as essential providers. This designation requires the managed care plans to include county health departments in their network of providers. And I've talked to Ms. LaChapelle, and she says that we are included as a provider with the state. Counties will continue to perform important functions for Medicaid beneficiaries, such as eligibility services and providing non-emergency medical transportation. Specifically, local DSS agencies will continue to make determinations as to Medicaid eligibility. They will update beneficiary information and perform eligibility case management. Local health departments will continue to provide services under North Carolina Medicaid Direct and may contract with health plans for some services, which again, we are scheduled to do that. For the first 3 years under the new system, health plans must reimburse the health departments at the current fee for service rate for certain pregnancy and at-risk child care management services. And finally, the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services will require vendors to make utilization-based payments to local health departments above the payments for services rendered under the managed care. So this is kind of an ongoing process. We'll have more, I'm sure, as it goes on, and Ms. LaChapelle said she would also have an update next time this week.
Thank you.
Any questions? In addition,
It's been a major thing that's sort of been hanging there in the background for a while. It was supposed to roll out last year. It was postponed because of COVID, and now it's out there. You probably know some folks that have Medicaid have already received letters for them to make their choice. And so it's a pretty big shift for the state of North Carolina. Our concern, of course, is both for our citizens and how it affects them who are eligible for Medicaid, but also for us as providers, as a provider, as Ms. Bess mentioned, through the health department. We accept Medicaid at the health department, as well as now through EMS, receive Medicaid as payment as well. So just wanted you all to have some knowledge of sort of where things are with that. And she said, we'll keep you updated as this progresses forward.
Any questions?
I'd like to add, Chair, the association board, we talked about this for the longest time, and my concern to them as well was having an enrollment broker to help beneficiaries. And it bothers me, or concerns me, about elderly population who don't really have anybody to help them or guide them through this, because some of them may select the wrong one by not having all the information and nobody really explained it to them. That's what I'm really concerned about.
That's right.
Any other comment? Anything else on your report?
Just a reminder about our couple of joint meetings that are coming up. As you recall, we are meeting with Edgecombe School Board this Thursday at 7 o'clock. We will be having that meeting here in this room. As you know, we have in the past had dinner together and all that prior to the meeting, but we won't be doing that this year. Next Monday, we'll be meeting at 7 o'clock with the Nash School Board, and that meeting will be at the Ag Center at Kingsburg at 7 o'clock as well. Also, item D, our budget work session. As I mentioned some time back, I'd like to have that on May the 17th at 10 a.m. so that I can present to you my recommended budget. We'll be meeting with the Budget Committee prior to that on the 12th. The afternoon of the 12th, and if everyone is still good for May 17th at 10 o'clock, we will proceed with scheduling for that. And also, we need for you to call for a public hearing at your June meeting, June 7th meeting, so that we can present the budget ordinance for the public.
We do that at the budget work session.
Sir?
You need us to do that now or do that at the budget?
You can do that now, yes, sir.
Is there a motion to call for a public hearing on June the 7th at our regular scheduled board meeting?
So moved.
Question? All in favor, let me know by voting sign aye. All opposed, hearing none.
All right, thank you, sir. Item E, opioid settlement update. Some of you may or may not be aware that there's been this national case of settlement regarding an opioid issue, certainly hitting our nation very hard in the last several years. That settlement is very close to being completed. It looks as though that there's going to be a considerable amount included in that settlement. It will be distributed to each state. Each state will have to decide for itself how it will distribute those funds. The state of North Carolina seems to be ahead of the curve compared to the other states in that North Carolina has already developed a plan as to how it will distribute these funds. That's been primarily spearheaded by the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners, who have done a tremendous amount of work over the last year or so. And so it will include funds that will come directly to every county, whether the county was a part of the suit or not. And the funds will have to be used for providing evidence-based treatment programs or efforts that will curtail people abusing opioids. And so right now it's only preliminary, but it looks like it could be a considerable amount of money. We don't have that final number yet, but it won't be just 1 year. This settlement is going to be based over an 18-year period. So I did provide a copy here in your packet from the Association of County Commissioners. It's a summary of the overview of the settlement. There is a memorandum of agreement that they're asking each county to approve. I just got that latter part of last week, so we need to review that some more. I likely will be bringing that back to you in June for your consideration, but I at least wanted you to know where things were headed with this, and we'll provide more information at your June meeting. The final thing is with e-file and our register of deeds office, getting very close to being able to implement that. They have equipment that's in place, staff has been trained. The last thing we're waiting for is for the final agreement from Simplify, which is the company that we'll be doing this with. We expect to get that any day. In fact, I was hoping that we would have this for the meeting tonight, but it looks like very soon we'll be able to offer e-recording through the register of deeds office. So that's all that I have under my reports. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Any questions? Hearing none, moving on. Is anything from the commission? Anything from the attorney? If not at this time, ladies and gentlemen, we're scheduled for a closed session to discuss economic development and legal matters. There are motion to go into closed session. So moved. Second. Question. All in favor, let me know by voting sign aye. Aye. All opposed, ladies and gentlemen, we now stand in closed session.